The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Let me just say, after viewing distorting the belt, they're proclaiming the real world champion. I'm going to tell you all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza Live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. We are powered up by Belly Up Sports. Great to be with you on this April the 12th, 2023. Hope everybody's had a great week. I know I have. The weather here in mid-Michigan has been nothing less than spectacular. 83 degrees outside. And what a perfect way to spend a pre-summer evening, a nice, warm spring evening, than talking America's pastime. That, of course, is Major League Baseball. And we're going to have one of our longtime guests on the show, one of our baseball insiders, Paul Chivari, is going to stop by and join us at approximately 7:15 Eastern time. We're going to talk Major League Baseball with him, his take on the rule changes, his predictions. He always does a great spread on all of his predictions. We'll show you them all, his Cy Youngs, his MVPs, his division predictions, his World Series, everything. It's always great to wrap with Paul. We get him on about 2 or 3 times a year here on the show, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. All kinds of Major League Baseball talk. Also tonight, we're going to spread it out a little bit with a little potpourri, if you will. We'll talk about the Masters here in a little bit. They wrapped it up last weekend, another great tournament. Congratulations to John Rahm. We'll talk about that here shortly. Also, my Detroit Lions, with the draft coming up, they made a big trade. Well, for us anyways, getting rid of a Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn first round gaff, maybe getting rid of Jeff Okuda to the Atlanta Falcons for a 5th round draft pick. He was the 3rd pick of the draft in one of their first drafts, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And he's no longer with the Detroit Lions. So opening up some cap space and whatnot. We'll talk a little bit about that. We're also going to preview the NBA playoffs. The play-in game started last night. One surprise, well, it was for me since I lost on my bet. Thanks a lot, Miami. We got the play-in games tonight going on. The Raptors and the Bulls are going to tip off here pretty quick. And also, we've got, I believe, the Pelicans and the Thunder coming up a little later on. But we'll give you a preview of what we think of the NBA playoffs coming up here, starting this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the NHL playoffs coming up next week. I think there's only one playoff spot left, and all the other ones are taken. It's going to come down to either the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I believe the Islanders, with a win tonight, they're in. And Pittsburgh's string of 16 straight years in the postseason could come to an end tonight if the New York Islanders win against the Montreal Canadiens. So we'll break down the matchups there. There's some great matchups in the NHL playoffs starting next week. And to me, it is the best playoff format in all of sports, pro and college. I like March Madness, one and done. It's got some great drama. But who doesn't like the Stanley Cup playoffs, Game 7, all on the line, you name it. So we're going to talk about those matchups as well. Hey, you can follow us on Twitter at The Real Captain Lou. Follow me on Facebook, Louis Gamlin, or the Captain Lou Extravaganza Facebook page, and also send me an email as stated on the bottom here, sweetlou1965 at yahoo.com. So it's that simple. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. You can look back at all of our broadcasts that we've done. We've had some great guests over the years. And we wrapped up another year of the ACHA Power Play, our 7th season doing that. Again, I want to thank all the guests that are that made that show a rousing success this year. And real quick with the ACHA, their all-star teams are heading to Romania to play in the World Cup of University Hockey, which there's I think 8 teams, round robin, 2 pool play. The ACHA is going to send 1 team from Canada and 1 team from the United States. So again, that's pretty cool there. So they're doing that. That's kind of their year-end thing this year. So again, thanks to all the coaches, players, administrators for helping making that show possible. And a lot of fun. It was hugely successful. And we'll pick the ACHA Power Play back up, like we said, in mid to late September. So from here on out through the summer, we're going to talk all the sports you want with all the playoffs coming up. And of course, Major League Baseball. So, again, glad you could be with us here tonight. Like we mentioned, a beautiful night for talking baseball. We said, what was it, 83 degrees this afternoon. So kind of gets you in the mood for summer sports, doesn't it? And of course, being Major League Baseball and golf. Those of us here in Michigan, the golf courses are starting to open up, and that means we'll get the clubs out. For those of you that have kind of been keeping up with me lately, you know that the golf season is going to start quite late for me this year, if at all, because I'm going to be going in for surgery next week. So I'll have plenty of time to be bringing you podcasts and shows on my YouTube channel. We're going to start those up earlier in the day, not next week, probably the week after, as I'm going to have a lot of time to do that here this summer. So I'm really looking forward to that. More interactions with you on my YouTube channel and also my social media pages. So we invite you to join us for those throughout the year. But getting back to golf, of course, as Jim Nantz likes to say, there is a tradition like no other. That, of course, is the Masters. And this past Masters 2023 was a good one as well. A lot of intrigue in it. A lot of intrigue. And John Rahm, he came through on Saturday or Sunday rather. Just the steady play. And he proved to me that he is the number 1 golfer in the world right now. You can maybe have a little bit of an argument with Scotty Scheffler. He's done well, but John Rahm's having one hell of a year this year, and he capped it off with his first green jacket. A lot of the talk, of course, was centered around the Live Tour players, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson up there in the hunt. Mostly Brooks Koepka. He was there throughout most of the tournament, and I honestly thought he was going to win it. And it's so funny is part of me was secretly rooting for the Live Tour to have a strong showing. Now, it really kind of chafes me a little bit when I listen to all these people talk about how the Live Tour, you can't root for their players because they're taking blood money. They're ruining the PGA Tour. I don't buy any of that. Okay, if it's blood money, then for those of you that say that, why are you watching the NBA? Because the NBA is taking China's money. That may not be blood money, but you know what? It's taking sweatshop money, if you will. LeBron James has no problem taking China's money. So I don't want to hear that argument. Those guys, if 9 out of 10 of us right now, and I would probably say 95 out of 100 of us had the opportunity to get a payday like that of $20 million up front, or whatever the case may be, $120 million, like Dustin Johnson or Phil Mickelson or any of them. You can't tell me you wouldn't take it. Life-changing money. And I know it's kind of weird. I watched my first Live Tour event on the CW Tour, or CW channel rather, and it was weird listening to music in the background and, the players wearing shorts. It was a lot more laid back. And yeah, it's a renegade tour right now. But I want to ask some of the people that are older, drop me a note on Twitter, drop me a note on Facebook. I'd love to hear you. What did you think of the AFL when it came out, or the ABA, or some of these other leagues? I mean, when the AFL came out 60 years ago, people probably said the same thing. Didn't hurt the NFL, it made it stronger. I ultimately think that sooner or later, these Live Tour players, they're going to merge back together. It has made some changes, but I love Brandon Chambly. I think he's a great mind for golf, but give it a rest. You continue to bash the Live Tour. Rory McIlroy, maybe you should concentrate on golfing a little bit instead of bashing the Live Tour players. He played terribly this weekend. But Jon Rahm played wonderfully. And and who wasn't rooting for the amateur? It would have been cool to see him in the top 5. Now he's all the way back at Texas A&M or Texas Tech, wherever he is down there. But, he might be an amateur, but he's going to get some NIL money. And from what I read, it's going to be in the 7 figures, and justifiably so. That's where it's at right now. So Jon Rahm played well. His moxie, some of the shots he made when it counted. And, watching it, we got a treat to watch him play 16 hours on Sunday, whatever it was. They had to play 30 holes. All right, maybe 10 hours, but you know what I mean? And so to see the intrigue and the drama between Rahm and Brooks Koepka, it was like the villain against the good guy. But but what I really liked about it all too was watching them talk to each other, especially in the 3rd round. Maybe not so much in the 4th round, but you could see them talking and laughing amongst each other. And so, I think some of the media has blown maybe a little bit out of proportion. Has Phil Mickelson stepped in it? Some of the things he said, of course he has. Greg Norman, yes, he has. But again, I don't blame those guys for taking the money. I mean, they're playing 54-hole events. They're making good coin. And, it was, I personally loved it. Now I think the majors are all going to take the Live Tour people. Obviously they're not going to be able to play in the FedEx Cup, but you know what? I have no issue with it whatsoever. And I'm glad that the Live Tour was able to make it. And 3 players in the top 5. Now, granted, Mickelson made a run. He was out of it to begin the 4th round, and he was way back. And of course, he had a shot, but, and Patrick Reed, his run was late. But to see 3 of them in the top 5 was pretty cool. So the Live Tour is here. You're going to have to embrace it. But right now, the king is Jon Rahm, and he's had one heck of a year, too, along with Scott Scheffler. It's great for golf, too, to see them up on top. Great to root for those guys. And one of the things, that we would be remiss without talking about, and when we wrap up the Masters portion of the show, is Tiger Woods. You could tell the weather obviously affected him. He could barely walk on Saturday when they tried to finish. You could tell he was miserable. How many rounds does he have left? And, he's 1 behind Jack to tie him for 6 green jackets. I don't know if he's got another one left in him. I think down the road he might. It's going to take the perfect storm. I think it's one of those things where if he starts out hot, I think he's got a shot in one of these Masters tournaments. Now, he probably won't play again till the PGA and maybe the U.S. Open. He's probably only going to play the majors and maybe 1 or 2 more events. He doesn't owe anything to anybody. I get it. But, I don't know. I will never count him out of any event. Now, I'm not his biggest fan. I think he gets a free pass with a lot of stuff. I mean, that car accident has a lot to do with his ailments right now. His reckless driving or whatever. And so, I think in a lot of instances, he does get a free pass on that. But that being said, he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest golfer of all time. And I think that I still think he probably has 1 more Masters in him. As far as a green jacket, I would not be shocked if he gets that 6th one. And who knows? He might, with a couple of more years of rehab or whatever you want to call it, he might be able to get that 6th green jacket, but we'll never know. So, hey, stick around. Don't forget, Paul Chivari is coming up here shortly. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball with him, but want to talk to you a little bit about Mahler Bros. You want to look good on the golf course, right? But often it comes at the expense of not playing so good or feel. Mahler Bros Golf has polos that will make you look good and feel good. They're lightweight and stretchy material that hugs your body. You will feel cool while looking just as cool. These polos are guaranteed, as I said, to make you look great, but it's up to you to make your golf game look better. But on a hot summer day on the golf course, this would be the way to do it. That's Mahler Brothers Golf. We'll talk more about those here shortly. But right now, let's get to our guest line, and let's bring in the Extravaganza's baseball insider, and that's Mr. Paul Chivari. Paul, how are you, my friend? Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Lou. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. It's 83 degrees outside. Feels like we should be sitting out in left field at Comiskey Park or Tiger Stadium, taking in a ball game.
I was wondering about that because we're on opposite sides of the lake, and we're probably about the same line of latitude, and it's so beautiful out where I'm at too. And I can't believe that a few weeks ago it was winter temperatures, and now I feel like we're in the throes of summer.
Oh, it's fantastic. I know it's, I've got the bug. You watch the Masters on Sunday, and then you see them playing ball, and they had opening day for the Lansing Lugnuts last night, and wow, it's that time of year, my friend. How can you not be excited, except if you're a Tigers fan? My goodness, I have to get up early for work, right? I was watching the Tigers. It was 3-0. They gave up a run. I went to bed. I woke up 9-3. I thought, what in God's green earth happened again? Paul, my Tigers have no relief pitching, man. It's 2-8 already. They say you can't win the World Series in October or in April, but you sure as hell can lose it. Detroit's on that track.
Yeah, I think it's just disappointing that I think where they wanted to be in their grand rebuild over the last few years, that they just kind of, I think, got a reality check last season with the, where Spencer Torkelson was at and just kind of overall the roster construction. And I wasn't really too impressed with their moves in the offseason to suggest that they're escaping that. So it's probably going to be another long year in Detroit, and hopefully they can right the ship soon and get back to their winning ways back when they had Jim Leland and the early goings of Miguel Cabrera's tenure in town.
I agree. I had very little hopes, and we'll talk about your predictions, and I'll give you mine too when we're going through those. I had zero hope. All I'll say is I was on another baseball preview show a couple weeks back or 3 weeks ago, and I told the guy, I said, this reminds me a lot of the 2004 Detroit Tigers, where they were 2 years away from that breakout year where they hit rock bottom, and I got a feeling that it could be rock bottom again before they start.
Was 2004 the 100 and something loss team?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Oh, goodness. I really hope it's not going to be the case for you. But, sometimes it's got to get worse before it gets better. And, sometimes you land some, generational, prospects, with a draft pick that high. So, just hold out, and hope for the best. I mean, you don't want to be jealous of a team like the White Sox, who's essentially that team 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. And now they're in the window, and it's been disappointing for them.
Yeah, it has. And that's I always think about you. It's like you're waiting for your team just to break out because you got the talent. And I wanted to tell you too, I was reading something tonight. Did you know that Adam Eaton is here right now in mid-Michigan? He's the director of player development for the Michigan State Spartans. Did you know that?
And you're talking about little Adam Eaton that was White Sox and Nationals and the left-handed outfield. Did he just retire? I he was okay.
One and the same. I saw that today. I'm like, holy cow, what a coincidence having Paul on. And yeah, I thought I'd share that little tidbit with you.
Good for him. I mean, he was exciting to watch as a player, and it's neat to see that he got a good job right out of the league. Yeah.
Well, let's get into the rule changes. And I got to tell you, Paul, I was for the pitch clock, and it's funny is I don't know what your take is regarding the pitch clock. As far as this point, I want to bring up. I was listening or I was reading. I can't remember. Is it Howie Roseman? I think does the play-by-play for the Mets. I was reading something that he said that he felt like he was broadcasting a hockey game. Now, I love the pitch clock. I love being able to watch a game in under 3 hours. To me, it's a godsend. It's gonna, it just makes, to me, it makes the flow much better. What are your feelings on the pitch clock?
Personally, I don't like it.
Oh, wow.
I totally understand why it needed to happen. So I'm not gonna, rail against it. But essentially, I love a good. You could take me to the ballpark and spend 15 innings and have nobody score, and it's a walk-off victory. And I'll tell you, it was the best game ever.
Okay.
So I don't mind if a game goes long, but I get it. I mean, it's 162 games a year. They're looking for commitment from their fans.
Yeah.
And how can fans commit to something that is that long and takes so much time? And, for the least bit of action before the clock, and at bat could take 10 minutes, if a guy kept fouling it off and stepping out of the box. And so I do like that the pace of play is nice. I think come playoff time, it's really going to annoy me. But at the same time, it's probably going to make me happy to go to bed at a decent time and not be watching the World Series at midnight. You know?
Yeah.
And you're in the East Coast, so I'm one to complain. You guys sometimes had to go to bed at after the ninth inning, somewhere probably close to 1 a.m.
Well, yeah. Well, I may have asked you this already in one of our previous chats we've had on here, but when I was growing up, games only went 3 hours, maybe, at the most. And what do you think made them drag out so long? Was it the pitching changes? Was it just, I don't know, the intricacies of, getting in and out of the batter's box? I mean, what made them get to that 4-hour mark?
I think a combination of a lot of those things.
Okay.
Being able to foul off pitches a lot easier.
Okay.
You see the athleticism of these guys. More guys are throwing, high 90s, 100s, but more guys are catching up to it, or at least swinging for the fences, so they at least have some sort of contact. So that, I think too many foul balls. I think stepping out of the box every single time. Pitchers, sometimes, they could step off the mound if there was miscommunication with the catcher, and everything resets once again. Think of the days, before mound visits were limited, where catchers would probably go out a few times during an at bat. And then, commercials. Let's not, I think Major League Baseball is very quick to sweep the biggest excuse under the rug that commercial breaks don't need to be 2.5 minutes long. So, but I mean, I think you combine all of that stuff and you've got, the game just carries on way too long. And this is now feels like a new skill set that the players have to be able to get their rhythm and their timing down, whether it's hitting or pitching, to just kind of like reset, get back into the game, get mentally focused. And I think, it used to be America's pastime, but now it's not. And I think, they said it was America's pastime, I think because it was, you could kill off an afternoon watching a game. It felt like a big event to go see the game or watch the game. And now it's just kind of something where it's like, you're in, you're out. It's like you get your money's worth when you go to the ballpark and you get your 2.5 hour entertainment.
Well, the next rule change I want to talk to you about, and you kind of got me last fall into starting maybe to think it was okay. And it, to me, was the shift, the rule. And it's funny is right before the season started, and this is so funny, in my quote unquote real job, I drive for Coca-Cola, and one morning I'm driving, I have usually about a 45-minute ride to my first stop, and NPR had Mark Gubiza on talking about it. I think he's the radio guy for the Angels now. And they asked him about it, and he's like, I'm all for it. And I was a little surprised by it, but he said, think about it. He said, people say, well, you know what? Guys should be able to hit to the opposite field, blah, blah, blah. He said, it's a little different than it was 30 years ago. He said, you're not throwing, guys have to try to hit a 95 mile an hour off speed pitch. And, the fastballs are more common at 100 miles an hour. He said, it is so difficult to try to learn that. And you know what? Hearing him say that, he made a believer out of me. And so I'm like, all right, I'll give it a chance. And it's funny now, Paul, I watched some of the games. You can see how they still shift even a little bit more, but right inside the bag. So they're still able to do it. So I'm a believer. I will say I am reformed. I believe in the shift. I'm glad they banned it.
I still don't, but once again, I understand the rule changes, what they were designed to do, create more action in less time.
Yeah.
In a small sample size that's already proven that that, and of course, we don't even need the small sample size of what we've seen so far this season. They heavily researched this.
Yeah.
This is going to change the game forever, probably for the better, regardless of what, the older crowd like us thinks, what we grew up with, what we appreciate. This is probably what's going to preserve the game for future generations, so that regardless of their interest level, they're always going to have some sort of connection to it. I forgot where I was going with that whole kind of point there. Oh, Theo Epstein. That's where I was going to go. Theo Epstein is one of the biggest reasons why all of this happened when, he decided to be an assistant to the commissioner's office and was kind of deputized in the last couple of seasons to really research this and see how this could be implemented in Major League Baseball. And it has. And I think even he already, I think, has a place in Cooperstown before all of this, but I think this solidified that he's going to go down as one of the all-time greatest executives the game's ever seen because of what he's done with the Red Sox and the Cubs, but now what he's done for the game to preserve it for the future.
Well, and it's like I said with the shift. I mean, you've watched it enough this year. You see how the shortstop is literally 6 inches, his side of second base. And same way, so there still is shifting. And so, they're doing it right up to the letter of the law, if you will. But I mean, I'll give it a chance. I'll keep my mind open.
I haven't watched it close enough, and it's different when you're at the ballpark versus TV. But
sure.
I saw spring training. There was a couple of managers playing the idea of moving a couple of their outfielders to essentially where the second baseman used to line up, and I don't know if that's a strategy or something you're going to see more of, or if eventually they're going to say your outfielders have to be positioned in such a manner. But we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think I don't like it, but I understand it, and it's still baseball, and it's still a fun game to watch. But it's turning into a little bit of a far cry from the one that I think we grew up with, and kind of how the game really evolved and organically was such a game that didn't require time, and now it kind of feels like it's rushed a little bit.
Can't argue with you on that one. Here's the last rule change I want to talk to you about that again, listening to Mark Gubiza, I didn't know that was a thing, and I don't know if it's really impacted the game yet, is I didn't realize that you could only throw it twice over to first base if you got a runner on there. And he said, watch these runners. He said, if I was doing it, I would tell the runners to get a big lead, but lean towards first base so you could get back and make them throw it to you twice. And then after that, just make a beeline for second. Have you noticed anything with that yet? That rule change? That one intrigued me a lot after I heard it.
I think that's part of the reason you're seeing more stolen bases.
Okay.
I think a lot of people tend to point to the bigger base, which makes somewhat of a difference.
Yeah.
But, I think pitch clock is now having pitchers more focused on what's going on at the plate more so than what's going on in the bases. The bigger base sizes do matter because a little bit of a bigger leadoff maybe, and you're that much closer to second base now or third base wherever you're stealing. Oh gosh, in addition to that, not being able to throw over a couple of times, to check the runner and keep him honest at that base. So I think, whether I like the rule or not, it's definitely had an impact on stolen bases. I think the league leader already has 6, and we're not 2 full weeks in.
Wow, we're talking Vince Coleman and Ricky Henderson range here pretty quick.
Absolutely. It's early, but on pace to be well over 100.
Wow, that'd be something. And I got to crack up because you talk about the bigger base. That still didn't stop what happened. I can't remember what game it was. Detroit was playing Boston. I think it was Sunday. And Spencer Torkelson beat out an infield hit. And it looked like he beat it by a mile. All of a sudden, Boston challenges it. Torkelson made a beeline down the first baseline, didn't turn, and he didn't even step on the base. And they called him out. And I looked at my dad. My dad's down visiting. We looked at each other like, the base is 5 or whatever, how bigger it is, and he still can't touch it, man. I just had to laugh. It was funny.
Isn't that something, though? I can understand, like, you'd see it sometimes in a guy's stride where, maybe he misses it, but the base seems that much bigger where it's like, well, gosh, you must be taking a pretty big stride if,
oh,
if
I know.
completely missed it.
Oh, only Detroit, man. I tell you, when it rains, it pours. We're joined on the Captain Lou Extravaganza by our baseball insider extraordinaire, Paul Chivari, always gracious with his time. Let's get to your predictions here. I love this spreadsheet that you sent. We're actually gonna put it on the screen here for those of you that are watching us. If I here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, and I'm going to start out with the division predictions that you have. And it's funny is I made a couple of bets, I know, shocking, over-unders this year. And I like where you're going. I'm giving your Chicago White Sox a little more credit. I predicted them to win 89 games. I predicted them second to Minnesota. I think, I like Minnesota's bats. I'm not sold on Cleveland as much as you are, but I've got Minnesota, Chicago, and Cleveland 1, 2, and 3. And, Kansas City and Detroit, still the bottom feeders. I think that's no shock to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a difference having Pedro Grifol in the dugout versus Tony La Russa.
Yeah.
And, perhaps if Andrew Benintendi's bat wakes up, the White Sox could be a better team offensively this year than they were last year. A little bit of a different philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
But so far in the small sample size, they still look like the same White Sox. I mean, I think they're leading the league in hits, or at least they were at some point this afternoon.
Yeah.
And then, their pitchers leading the league in strikeouts. But here's a team that's dancing under 500 right now.
Yeah. And then Cleveland, to me, I just love the job that Tito does as the manager there, Tito Francona. And, every year they're right there. And they're not the most talented team in the world. I don't think they're the most talented team in the Central Division. But, you've got them at 91 wins. I wouldn't be shocked. But, man, it just seems like he does the most with the least out of the three bigger teams in the Central.
Well, their starting pitching is really good.
Good point.
And I think that's probably the biggest part. But we'll see if that changes this year with, the way the whole game is different now. And, and of course, the schedule is different, with all of it. It's not so regional anymore.
Right.
So let's see how these teams do when they play a little bit more competition. I still like Cleveland. I think the White Sox are a mess. I don't think they've addressed a lot of the biggest question marks that they had, other than Tony La Russa, but that wasn't even their biggest question mark when the season ended last year, other than, is he officially retiring? They could surprise, it's an expanded playoffs. They might be able to slip in there. I highly doubt they win the division, but it's still early. It's, anybody can take it. It's not like any team in that division is, a world beater when you look at, the National League or American League East or the National League West, or even like the Houston Astros in the West and the American League, how every year there's some sort of super dominant, looks like a barnstorming team with the amount of stars that some of these teams, the Dodgers, especially the last couple of years, how many just all-stars are on these teams. So, yeah, someone's got to win the American League Central. I'm glad you're optimistic that the White Sox are a good team, but I still like Cleveland. I'm with you on Minnesota's bats. I think they're a better put-together team than the previous season. I think they're serious about winning. Yeah. And I think Rocco Baldelli, he's growing as a manager.
Yes.
I'm not going to crown him a great manager yet, but you could see he has a little bit more passion than most guys. And I think with how young he is and how much I think he's learning at this level, I think he's going to be around for a long time in major league dugouts.
Well, your Tampa Bay prediction is off to a rousing start. They keep this up, they'll be hitting 84 wins by the All-Star break. Wow, they're off to a great start. I know they're going to come back to earth. It's so funny is, I was listening to comparisons to the other teams that started out hot, like the Brewers, and what was it, in 87 or whatever it was, and they ended up losing 12 straight after they won 13 in a row. But I like your predictions with Toronto and New York. I like Toronto, New York. I just, they're another team. You talk about a barnstorming team. they could hit 450 home runs, but I don't trust their starting pitching. And I think that could be their Achilles heel, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't have the benefit of 2 weeks hindsight when I filled these out. So
right.
If I would have known Tampa would have gotten off to such a good start, I might have played with the numbers a little bit there. And the thing is, I always do this to myself with the Toronto Blue Jays. I always place them higher than they're supposed to be, I suppose.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talent on that team. I think it would have to click at some point. It'd be a little far-fetched, I guess, for a young, inexperienced manager, to win the division in the first season, but perhaps that's what they would need as a change of pace. But yeah, I'm with you. The starting pitching isn't all there. I think, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I don't think is quite the superstar now that he was 2 years ago. I think they need a little bit more on that offense to really solidify it, but it's a talented squad. There's a lot of good guys on that team. It's a tough division. With Tampa, I guess I do the opposite of what I do with the Blue Jays, because I think you see some of those names and you think, wow, these are some really world caliber players. But with Tampa Bay, some of them are not household names, and they somehow seem to piece together 13 pitchers where you can't even define which one's the starter or the closer, because Kevin Cash can just use them freely as he'd like to. And then a Randy Arozarena, maybe I don't give him the credit that he deserves, because he's a beast. And even earlier tonight,
he's a stud.
3-run shot in the first inning. So
I really like him. Yeah, he's
could be an MVP candidate for all we know.
100%. I agree. I like his style. I like watching him play. It was unfortunate they beat Detroit 3 straight to open the season, but I like his style of play. You're bullish on Seattle, I see, 91 wins.
Well, and what happened this week in Chicago to them is kind of an example, maybe.
Yeah.
It's hard to really say that they're better than Houston right now.
Right.
A lot of talent. I think a 90-win team, but I think the Astros are still the class of the division. And especially losing Justin Verlander, but their pitching staff still looks that good.
Yeah.
And then they toss out Yuli Gurriel, who was kind of dead weight at first base, and they have my Jose Abreu.
Yes. Wow.
Just as well. So it's they're studs, and they don't even have Jose Altuve in the lineup.
Isn't that something? God almighty.
It's a long season. We'll see. But I don't know if you were following the Seattle in town this week against the Cubs. Monday night they get a game-tying homer in the 9th, only to lose it to the 10th against the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they jumped out to a big lead early last night, and the Cubs ended up kind of overtaking them. And
I did see that. Yeah.
Today they were able to steal one off the Cubs, but I think it was just Logan Gilbert on the mound. It kind of seemed it was their favor. But slow start for the Mariners, and we'll see if they're able to kind of kick it into high gear. But I just think the Astros are the class of that division. And I think there's more talent in the Angels and the Rangers this year than we've seen in previous years.
Yes.
So I think the battle for 2nd through 4th is going to be the real story of this whole division.
And, I'll ask you this when we, as my last question, we'll talk about Shohei a little bit, but I want to quickly go over the National League. I like your pick on Philadelphia. I put a few shackles on the over on their win total at the beginning of the year. I think it was 86.5 or something. I just, New York's one of those teams, it's like I'm from the show me state, Missouri. Show me you can win. It seems like they're another team that gets they get the New York pub, and they always tend to disappoint. Atlanta's Atlanta, like you've got. I just, I still like Philadelphia. I know they're 4-8 right now. They lost again today. But it's early, in my opinion. I think they'll be right there.
I think the hardest part with Philadelphia was, the long season last year, getting all the way to the World Series.
Yeah.
Kind of seeing that, aside from Wheeler and Nola, they weren't that deep at starting pitching. They really didn't address that too much this offseason. They do have a good, solid pitching staff, including their relievers. But those injuries, the Bryce Harper is going to be out for a while.
Yep.
Reese Hoskins getting injured right before the start of the season. That definitely hurts the club. But of course, Trey Turner picking up in their absence, can always help. but then being in that tough division, where, no matter what, they're never going to be as good as Atlanta.
No, not
on
now.
paper until Atlanta, has a series of setbacks.
Yeah.
And then New York is going to New York. It's I think there's so much pressure on that team to try and be better than the Yankees. And I think with their owners' money, the fact that you have, superstars like Scherzer and Verlander back in the same dugout again. But, it's how many years since they were successful together in Detroit, so it's,
right.
I don't know if I told you. I mean, I think you saw it with Scherzer in the playoffs last year that I think it was like the wild card round against San Diego where he just did not look good. He didn't look like the dominant Max Scherzer that we were used to seeing from maybe 5-6 years ago. And Verlander's been great this late in his career, but I just don't know if you can depend on 2 40-year-olds to get you, through October. So, I know there's more to the Mets than that, but I think when you just look at the Atlanta Braves, as long as they stay healthy, as long as things are firing through Ronald Acuna Jr., as long as they're getting solid pitching performances out of the wealth of pitchers that they have, in the starting core and relieving, I just think that team's going to run away with it. Plus, they have I think they have the best manager and the experience of constantly winning this division. Somehow, some way, the Braves always find a way, whether it's Bobby Cox or Brian Snitker or Freddie Gonzalez or whoever it is. This team just always finds a way to win.
Finally, St. Louis, that the Central Division, I'm with you there. I think Milwaukee will give them a run. I'm a little more bullish on Milwaukee than you are. Maybe it's because my nephew's a big Brewers fan. But San Diego, is this finally going to be the year that they could put it together? I know they made a run last year. I guess they weren't that big of a disappointment. But, wow, what are your feelings on them getting to the World Series?
I think I put them down as my World Series guys.
Yes, you did.
Okay, because I waffled on it when I did these predictions.
Yes.
I really liked Atlanta going back to the World Series, but then I thought about it and I was like, well, San Diego didn't look that great during the regular season, but then once October hit, they really put it together.
They sure did.
I think that's what matters sometimes, and there's so much talent in that team, Mount Crushmore, it's and even though they're not clicking on all cylinders right now, there's going to be a moment where they will.
Yeah.
It's
going
to be devastating what they're going to do to any team that's in front of them at that point. And it's just, I think their starting pitching needs to really improve. Who knows if they have it in them to make another, super trade like they did last year, but with what they've got right now, and I think where LA's at, because I think the Dodgers are getting older, and I think their time is running out.
I agree.
I think this is a way for San Diego to try and really, take that away from them. So I think this is their year. I think I have them winning that division barely over the Dodgers, but they haven't shown it to me yet. And it's just funny to me that teams that have that much talent, you've seen it happened before with other teams where just on paper they look so good. You see all of those guys coming out of the dugout and somehow they just struggle to put up runs or struggle to stay ahead. And that seems to be the Padres in the early goings.
Now, real quick on the Dodgers, I listened to somebody, I can't remember, one of the pundits say, now, do you think that they were built for the rules before the rule changes, and now the Dodgers are going to be a victim of the rule changes now, and they're more of the big sticks, not more of the smaller ball play? Or is it more like you said, they're just maybe an older team, just needing to retool a little bit?
I think older team needing to retool a little bit, but I mean they have plenty of talent, but injuries as well. I think having Walker Buehler out this year, Dustin Mays looks pretty good early. He was injured last year, but having younger guys back like that. But it always just seems to be a lack of consistency in that roster. But it's never really inhibited them. Gavin Lux going out early this year was devastating. Over the years, they've lost, some talented players, and they haven't really supplemented all of that completely. So I think when you combine kind of all of that, this isn't the Dodgers that won the World Series, 3 years ago. This isn't necessarily the same Dodgers team that's been winning the division year after year.
Right.
So I think that'll finally catch up to them. But they're still a talented team. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see how they can be better than San Diego in the long run this year.
Finally, we've got about 3 minutes left. I want to bring up. I love your MVP predictions. I think Shohei Ohtani deserves both the MVP and the Cy Young. I'm right there with you. I like the Juan Soto prediction. My question to you is with Shohei Ohtani. Now, he's, to me, going to be the first $60 million a year ball player. I think that's pretty much a given in my book. I don't know how many years, and I don't know who's going to pony up the money. Is it going to be the Dodgers? I don't know if the Angels are going to do it. I hope to God he's not wearing pinstripes on the East Coast next year. But what a phenomenal talent. It just seems like, watching him is such a joy. Do you see him? I don't see him getting traded before at the deadline, but the Angels aren't going to win that division, Paul. And it's got to be just eating away at him. Do you see him leaving after this year?
I do. I really do. Unless the Angels can pony up the money. I don't have a true feel on who he is as a person, but
right.
Then again, he does strike me as the type of guy that would rather win than make money. Yeah. But at the same time, I hope someone warned him back in 2017 when he signed to the Angels.
Yeah.
Maybe don't sign to this team if you want to win divisions. So I don't know. And I was talking to my son about this earlier because he likes the Cubs, and I was like, realistically, he could be on the Cubs next year. That would be quite the attraction.
Oh, I'd love that.
The way that team is built, I think he's kind of a missing link, where they need, they need a better starting pitcher, and they need a better guy to club the ball in the batting order. So that could be their guy.
And the numbers he's putting up is just unbelievable. I never in my lifetime, the way baseball's structured now. I mean, these are kind of numbers that 12-year-olds in Little League put up, or maybe, in Pony League, 14, 15-year-olds. You don't see this in the majors. And I don't know if we ever will. Well, I'm sure we will again, but I never thought I would see it up until now. And it is so phenomenal to watch. And, I think he is going to be the new face of baseball if he's not already.
I agree. I think he already is. And I think, you saw the moment, the highlight of
yes, I loved it.
Was striking out his own teammate. I called my family downstairs, and even the kids that aren't interested in baseball were still glued to it. It was a big moment for the sport. It was a big moment for him. He just needs to go and get to that World Series now. And, winning the championship would be great, but already the winning one with Japan solidifies him, I think, as a world-class athlete. And I think, honestly, Lou, I think about what he's done, and it'd be hard to see another player being able to accomplish this sort of stuff. I know there are crossover talents that can pitch and hit.
Right.
The utter dominance that he's doing it, I think we're going to appreciate it more 20 years from now when we don't see anyone else doing this.
Boy, it's like, I tell anybody that watches, anybody that'll listen, if you get a chance to see him in your town, whether it's Detroit, Chicago, wherever, buy the tickets, go see him. It's well worth it. You may never see it in your lifetime. So, well, Paul, I appreciate you coming on. I hope it's a good enough distraction for your Bulls against the Raptors tonight. Good luck with that. I don't know what the score is, but it's I appreciate you taking time out. It's so much fun talking baseball with you. I love it.
Well, thank you so much, Lou. Anytime you ask, I'm going to be on your show, and I'll talk baseball anytime with you.
All right. Well, enjoy the baseball this summer. We'll get you on sometime in June, see how all the teams are doing, and we'll see if we can convince each other that maybe these rule changes are indeed good.
It sounds good, Lou.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Paul Chivari, our baseball insider, stopping by with us tonight. What a treat, as always, to be with us here on the show. And again, you can see him or listen to his Baseball Weekend podcast. It does a fantastic job. Him and Mitch Bernstein are my two go-to guys, are regulars here on the show. We'll get Mitch on in a little while. And we're going to be talking baseball all summer. And, America's pastime. It's time to get fired up. And, I know he's not a big fan of the pitch clock. He's more of maybe of a traditionalist. And I always think I am, but I got to tell you, I love the pace of play, and, the strategy is still there a little bit. I love to be able to watch a game in 2.5 hours. The 4-hour games they were too long. And maybe it would have helped if my Tigers were better than, 2 out of every 10 games winning. But, that's beside the point. I like the rule change there. The shift, I was vehemently against it. And, I waffle back and forth on it now. Like I said, I listened to Mark Gubiza about it. And, he made some good points, how it's so much tougher to hit the baseball. It's not as easy maybe to go the opposite way. But, I still watch the game and I'm seeing how they still shift. They just don't put them on the other side of second base. And they're keeping 4 infielders in, so there's no right fielder playing. So I get that. So they're still doing it. It's just not as pronounced. So, and as long as you've got the sabermetrics or whatever, it is so funny. The biggest thing to me is watching, or you read how these players aren't getting penalized for getting 200 strikeouts now, at bat, or 200 strikeouts, swing and miss, whatever, not pitching strikeouts, but you know what I mean? And back when I was growing up, if you got 200 strikeouts, you were in AA. You weren't getting to the dance. So just a different mindset right now. And it's either home runs or strikeouts. And, the days of 3,000 hits, and that's pretty much going to be out the window. It's going to be a long time, I think, before we get another one, just like 300 wins. I think once Justin Verlander gets there, you may not see another 300-game winner for a long time because, you just don't have the longevity that you used to, or, they don't pitch enough. I mean, you're going to situational pitching, 4 to 5 innings, 6 innings at the most. It's, and also you've got 5 and 6 man rotations, so you don't get as many starts either. So anyways, thanks to Paul Chivari for joining us here on the show. Excuse me one moment. Always a treat talking to Paul, talking baseball. 2 weeks in, Tampa Bay 11-0. I'm just going to check the scores real quick. I think, they're up 6-1 now over Boston. Looks like they're going to go to 12-0 here, unless Boston can pull something, a rabbit out of their hat or something. But anyways, thanks to Paul for joining us here on the show. And, we always like to do this too. Thank you for taking time out to watch us here on the Captain Lou Facebook or Sports Network on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a lot going on with that. We're going to have even more this summer. It's going to be a busy summer for us here, getting ready in the baseball season. We got the playoffs coming up, NBA and NHL, and of course, football season around the corner. The draft is going to be here in 2 weeks from tomorrow is the first round of the NFL draft. So there you go. Well, we've got NFL prediction time for the playoffs. Want to take a quick look at that while we got a few minutes left. I'm going to be NFL, NBA playoffs. My bad. Now, those of you know, I'm not as proficient at basketball at the NBA level. I don't watch as much of it as I used to. It to me is still more of a 2-man game, but with my son being a big basketball fan, NBA fan, and my nephew and my dad down visiting, we'll give it a look here. And the play-in games, the Lakers needed overtime thanks to the brain fart by Anthony Davis. They needed overtime to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves without Rudy Gobert. So they're in with the 7th seed. They're going to take on Memphis. That's going to be one heck of a series. Some of these the Western Conference opening round series are going to be crazy. They're going to be very intriguing. This is now the time of year where a lot of folks will start watching the NBA. Now, I'm not a big fan of how they spread the series out. They don't need 3 days off between games. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's going to take till the end of June for these playoffs, for God's sakes. And that's way too long. But let's look at the opening round matchups in the Western Conference real quick. You've got Memphis and LA. I think that's going to go 7 games. And you've got the young guys, the trash talkers on Memphis. They're not scared of the Lakers. And you've got LeBron, who right now to me is, if not the best player on the planet, he's in the top 2. You've got Anthony Davis. Now, my thing with AD is he going to stay healthy? It's a long playoff run. His track record isn't the greatest. He's playing great now. I get it. But is he going to be healthy throughout the playoffs? I just, they might be, if they can get by Memphis, then I'll be a believer. But I just think in the long run, I like Memphis. It's so close. Memphis is only minus 130. So if you're looking to drop a couple of, nickels maybe on the Lakers, I could see why you would. They've got the moniker, they've got the name. But I like the Grizzlies. I like them in 7. I think that's I don't know. It's not because I'm not a big Laker fan. I just think they're overrated because they're the Lakers. They're in the playoff game. They're in the play-in game for a reason. They made some great acquisitions. I know they had the best record since the trade deadline, but I don't know. They're going to have to prove it to me. They can make it through 1 or 2 series before I'm going to anoint them a NBA Finals contender. I just don't see it. Sacramento and Golden State. That's the series right there. It starts on Saturday. I love the Kings. I would love to see them knock off Golden State. You talk about a franchise that has been snake bit and got hosed by the Lakers back in the day. Yes, they did back in that game 7. It's been a long time since they've been relevant. I like Steph Curry. But me, I'm not a Draymond Green guy, but I would love to see the Kings win that one. The Warriors as a 6th seed are minus 265. To me, I think it's worth putting a nickel or 2 on Sacramento. Just, if they can steal one in Golden State, obviously it's going to come down to winning in Sacramento. And I know the home court advantage isn't as big as it used to be. This is another one I think is going to go 7, and I'm kind of flopping on this one. I just until the Warriors are knocked off, I guess I would lean towards them. But Sacramento, I don't know. We don't get to see them play that often, especially here on the East Coast. But what an intriguing matchup that is. But I think ultimately, in my opinion, the team to beat in the West is the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant stays healthy. That team is going to be so tough. So tough. And I think they're going to beat the Clippers in 5. So give me the Suns. I'm going to say the Suns are going to go back to the championship. I think they're going to run. They're going to make a run if they can stay healthy. I think that they're going to take care of business. Then they'll win. And they'll end up playing probably Denver, or they'll play Denver in the second round. I think they could beat them. I could see them playing Memphis or Golden State maybe for the right to go to the finals. Boy, would that be a matchup, wouldn't it? Maybe I can revisit that. In the Eastern Conference, you've got the play-in games being decided, but you've got Philadelphia and Brooklyn. I'm going to take the Sixers. Joel Embiid is probably going to be the MVP. If they throw a shoe, though, big changes are ahead. And I don't even know if Harden's going to stay after this year, but I like the Sixers in that one. Boston and Atlanta. Boston will get by in this one. Then after that, I'm not real sold on them. But I like the Bucks going all the way, at least to the finals. I just think they're well-rounded, a better team. I'll be shocked if they don't make it to the finals. I think they've got revenge on their minds against Boston. They're going to have the home court advantage. I think they're more well-rounded. And for some reason, Boston to me right now doesn't seem to be clicking. So, they're going to beat Atlanta. But again, just some crazy predictions. I see it's going to be Phoenix and Milwaukee, and I think the Bucks are going to win it again. So there you go. We've got a couple minutes left. Want to talk a little NHL because we've got the regular season pretty much all decided as far as the playoffs go. And we're going to talk more about the playoffs next time on our show. I'm going to be a special guest on the 1420 podcast this weekend, wrapping up the NHL season. Well, let's take a quick look at the NHL standings and the NHL playoffs. Right now, everything's pretty much decided. And in the Eastern Conference, it's going to come down in an opening round Best of 7 again. It's Toronto and it's Tampa Bay. All my friends that are just, diehard Toronto Maple Leaf fans, this is going to be your year. You're going to win that opening round matchup. You're going to beat Tampa Bay. I think you're finally going to do it. You're going to get past that and into the second round. But obviously, that's going to be the matchup in the Eastern Conference. Boston, hats off to the Bruins. As a Red Wings fan, I hate the fact that you eclipse their record for wins, but this team's loaded and they're getting healthy. 64 wins, 65 wins it could end up with. That's amazing. Their opening round matchup is going to be against probably the Islanders. Islanders have to win tonight if they win against Montreal in any form, shootout, overtime, whatever, they're in. Stops the Pittsburgh Penguins wins their playoff streak at 16 straight seasons. So either way, Boston will play either them or Pittsburgh, and they will have no trouble with them. They might lose a game. Carolina and Florida, that could be an interesting matchup. The Devils and the Rangers. Wow, this just brings back memories of great battles with those two teams in the playoffs. That'll be a fun matchup. And again, in the West, they're pretty much set. Colorado's going to take on the Kraken more than likely, and that's going to be a tough matchup. I could see that one going 6, but I think Colorado's going to win. Dallas and the Wild, I don't have a read on that one. I kind of like the Wild. Marc-Andre Fleury in the playoffs. How can you bet against him? I think that they can advance. And then Edmonton and the Kings. I really like Edmonton in the playoffs this year. I don't know why. Maybe I still have a soft spot for Kenny Holland for helping build the dynasty in Detroit. And I know it was pre-salary cap. I get it. But, I would like to see Edmonton do well. Vegas and the Jets. My heart says Winnipeg. I'm just not a Golden Knights fan, but they're playing great hockey. I could see Vegas and Colorado matching up in the East or the Western Conference Finals. I could see Vegas and Edmonton. The Western Conference has some good teams, but I think it's going to be Boston going all the way. That's just, we're looking at it right now. We'll have a more in-depth look at the hockey playoffs next week. So just kind of a quick look there at the NHL playoffs, the NHL matchup. So, there you go. Wow. An hour and so in the books already. Can you believe that? What a show. What a life. It's always fun to be here on the network, on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. We are, as always, powered up by Belly Up Sports, and we want to thank them. Check out our website, bellyupsports.com. We've got our complete list of podcasts, and we've got all of our writers that do the great articles on bellyupsports.com. Check us out. We cover all the major sports and all the sports that aren't major. We have it all here. And I want to thank you for taking time out to check that, and also for taking time out to watch our show here tonight. Next week, we will tentatively be on Thursday. Not positive on that. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Wednesday is our normal time spot in the evening, but next Wednesday, I'm going in for foot surgery. So I'm going to be laid up for a while, but I'll still be able to do the podcast. We're going to have a different setup. The studio is downstairs, so it's going to be tough for me to get up and down steps with my foot in a boot or a cast or whatever. But we will not be on next Wednesday. Please check out my Facebook page, my Twitter handle, which, as you can see on the bottom, at The Real Captain Lou. We'll get you set up with the time that we're going to be on. But starting the week of the draft, we are going to be on during the day, the week of the 24th. We're going to be on the 3 days a week in the morning. And I'll keep you up to date on that on all my social media outlets and on the Captain Lou Sports Network page, our YouTube channel as well. So please check us out there. So, all right, that's going to do it tonight. Again, I want to thank my good buddy, Paul Chivari, our baseball insider. Paul's been on the show numerous times over the years, and it's always great talking baseball with him. Paul, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. You can be able to catch an audio version of this on Spotify and all of where you find all of your podcasts will be downloaded tomorrow. Check that out. But again, check out our YouTube channel, the Captain Lou Sports Network, and as well, bellyupsports.com. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This reminder, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. Until next time, thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on the Captain Lou Sports Network. So long.